Hey everybody, before we get started, I just want to remind you this episode is brought to you by our patrons like Higa Comics, Qua, Jeremy Vasquez, Kylie Denton, Nestor Flores, Soto-san0424, and VideoGamer75. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies, and it'll really help us out. Thanks for your support, everybody. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's time once again to talk about Star Wars Legion by Fantasy Flight Games. This is my second or third take of this section, because I had to do some thinking about some mic position stuff. But anyway, we're here. I'm not going to wiggle my mic arm around to make a whole lot of noise. So, today we're going to be talking about the Darth Vader Operative Expansion, which has just been previewed. Now, this is a little bit different than the situation with Luke. The Luke Operative, I decided not to do a video because everything about him was known already. Like, there were a couple of details that were clarified for the general public in the article, but most of the stuff you could see in their recent prize support preview, like Luke's were all front and center. And there wasn't really too much extra to discuss there that I didn't think we hadn't talked about already. But Vader's command cards, I think while they were revealed on stream, you couldn't see them in the prize support article, so that's a region where, a video could be helpful to talk about some general stuff and talk about the unit. Mention a few of his upgrades and so on. Kind of get that one out there. And talk about some other news at the end. So, with all that intro stuff, let's go ahead and move into Operative Vader's, or Apprentice Vader, as FFG likes to think of him, because this is meant to be early Vader, like Rebels and comics and stuff. And we'll talk about his unit. Alright, so, Mr. Vader's command card. The Emperor's Apprentice is his subtitle. He's 170 points, so even with the slight bump down for the new tournament points, the Apprentice version of Vader is a pretty hefty discount from the Commander version. But obviously that's for a reason, so let's run through all the differences. So, this Vader has 6 wounds, 3 courage, but still keeps red defense die, so he loses 2 wounds and actually has a courage value over Vader, but that also was a problem for regular Vader because he could... Basically, you discarded suppression tokens, which means you did not improve cover or anything like that. So, this guy has the whole thing. He's got the 3, he can do the stuff. Like regular Vader, he's got no surge. So, you're going to have to work that out on your own. But, interestingly enough, despite being cheaper, this Vader has much more keywords. Also, he's still speed 1. But, the keywords can help with that. So, he still has all the same keywords as the first one. He has Deflect, he is immune to Pierce, he has Master of the Force 1, and he has Relentless. So, he can still do Deflect, so if he spends a dodge token, he can get Surge to block and bounce those back, do wounds. He's still immune to Pierce, he still gets to untap one of his Force upgrades, and he can still do a ranged or melee attack, which, especially on Operative Vader, is actually better at the end of a move. So what are the 2 new ones? He's got Jedi Hunter, an icon, a keyword first seen on previews of Grievous, though it's come out that the Operatives and the Clone Wars core set were all developed at roughly the same time, so it makes sense. And basically, so long as you have a unit that has a Force upgrade icon, you don't have to have anything attached to it, the ROG is clear, you get Surge to Crit, so now Vader has mods. They're very specific mods, but he has mods. And this effectiveness will improve over time. Like, for instance, versus CAS, it does nothing right now. But Separatists are going to get Dooku in a few months, and then you'll have a thing, etc., etc. It's good against both versions of Luke. It's good against the Kenobi Commander. In matchups, it's actually good because it's good against Vader and Palp, and then also Apprentice Vader, interestingly enough. And then also, you get Spur, which was on the dewbacks. After you perform a move, or while performing a move, you may gain 1 suppression token to increase your maximum speed by 1. Now, regular Vader can never do this because he can never gain a suppression token. Tokens are discarded. They don't count. But they put it on this guy, so he can. Basically, I think that makes sense for the quote-unquote younger. I mean, it's only a few years, but still. This is the, midlife crisis Vader. I gotta get those darn Jedi. So he's very focused. He's not a real military leader yet, as seen by the fact that he doesn't have any command upgrades or anything. He's just got 2 Force into training. Like, this version is not meant to be better at commanding troops at all. Not that the regular Vader had a command upgrade, but it makes sense. Though he does have one less force slot. He's got 2 force slots in a training slot, like I said. But also, he's got Spur. He's not quite as old and beat up and, injured. This is still angry. This is, that period towards the end of Rogue One, just before the beginning of A New Hope, and then the open scene of A New Hope, where Vader's just pissed. He's pissed off. He's ready to rock and roll. With Spur. So, we've already mentioned his upgrades. Let's talk about his weapons real quick. He has 2. I did say weapons. First is Vader's Saber. It's melee only. It's down to 5 red dice, so you lost a single die. But you kept the Impact 3 and the Pierce 3, so it's still a very solid, reliable hit. God help you against a Jedi. Now, admittedly, they're immune to Pierce, but still. That's guaranteed hits or crits. But also, he's got a new thing, Force Throw. That's right, he has a ranged attack, a range 1 to 2 attack, which, with Relentless and Spur, is quite a big area. It's only 2 black dice, and obviously there's no mods, but he has Blast, so he ignores cover, and he does have Scatter, so after you hit a unit with it, and actually, it says, don't even think it has to hit, it says after you perform an attack against a small base trooper unit, you may place each defending non-leader mini in the defender, blah, 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 cohesion. Basically, you get to recohere them. So if they're, like, corner peeking or doing something cheeky with their current cohesion, Vader gets to blast them and be like, okay, well, now you're all out of cohesion. Hey, guys behind me, shoot them up. I actually looked over my shoulder when I said that in case my audioscape changed. So overall, the 20 points, you do lose some stuff, okay? You've lost an option for a force upgrade, which on Vader, the force power upgrades were... With 3... you had a pretty steady setup of builds, right? Like, you usually wanted to give him Saber Throw for obvious reasons. That's not as required with this version, because he already has a range 1 to 2 attack. You could still do it, because you might want to, but you don't have to. He already has that range 1 to 2. Choke, obviously, another cheapo upgrade, was good to just blurb a commander. But now these are a little opened up, but they're still smaller. Anger's a good choice. Suffer 1 or more wounds, gain an aim token. He does have a little bit less wounds, but he could still use the mods. And we'll talk about Fear in a little bit. That one can make a very good addition for this. But also, they all in general got a lot of discounts, so that can still be pretty handy. You did lose 2 wounds, and technically the courage, but he is cheaper, so it's not so worrisome. A lot of the original Commander Vader's problem was that, especially with his slow speed, and now you can Spur to pick that up if you need to. And some other options we'll talk about when we talk about his command cards. But those 8 wounds didn't go as far as you'd like, even with red dice. You know? Right? So, this version has that, what do we call it? He's more points efficient, and he keeps most of his old special keyword powers. He loses out on a couple wounds. The trading 1 red die down to 2 black die at a range 1 to 2 without needing to add extra points to him. Now, obviously, Saber Throw did get cheaper, so that means that in addition to going down 10 points already, it was 10 points, right? Let me double check. I think I said it earlier, but I'm not looking at it now, so I'm like, wait, was it? Yeah, so he was 200, now he's 190. And Throw is 5, Reflexes is 10, Battlefield Meditation is now 5. Meditation doesn't do anything for this build, but Reflexes being down to 10, he has some stuff to help with that, but in general, I would think that it's still a good choice. So you could easily just go Reflexes Anger. That's only 15 more points now, and basically get some opportunities for some tokens. He gets to untap Reflexes for free. Choke is also still a good choice because it's exhaustible, and you still get a Master of the Force. That training upgrade, Endurance, I believe, is in this pack. Let me scroll back up. Yeah. So Endurance is one of the upgrades in here, and we'll talk about the other one when we talk about the upgrade spread that we're pretty sure is all in this. That's a good choice because he does have suppression now you need to worry about, so clearing out extra suppression is good. There is going to be that upcoming training upgrade, which gives you tactical 1 in certain cases. When you move, you gain an aim token. That can be a really good choice. It lets you spare maybe something like anger to switch up what you're going on. Other stuff I don't think is super great. Hunter or tenacity though could work. And we'll talk about that again when we talk about upgrades. Overall, I think he's a decent discount version, and it lets you focus on running some combos maybe a little bit differently, kind of breathe some new life into Vader as a unit. And fundamentally, I think, especially with like the weapon choices, like his ranged weapon, that is something that can be said, for instance, for Saber Throw, is that still gets to keep all the impact and pierce and stuff. So that was another reason why vehicles weren't great, was because, Imperial players were like, I don't even need the HH-12. I've got DLTs and I've got Saber Throw Vader. So I'll just, huck 3 lightsaber dice, which are gonna turn into crits for armor and gonna pierce through your defenses, so get wrecked, right? That was a big concern in early days, was making sure to kill Vader before he got within killing range of your AT-RTs. And may still be a thing again. But I think we've blabbed on long enough about the overall unit. Let's talk about those command cards. Soz. Those command cards. Alright. So, you can see them all on the spread, but there are individual images for these if you want to check the text out for yourself. I'm going to read from the individual cards here. So we usually do here on the channel. So, the 1-pip is Vader's Might. Oh, also, important to remember that while it hasn't been clarified how exactly in the RRG, it is the intent of the developers, because they keep saying it, that you're going to be able to use these command cards with the regular Commander Vader too. And that Commander Vader's command cards are good with Operative Vader. I don't really think we're going to go into the whole deep analysis of like what command cards are better or whatever, because then we'll be here for hours. But just in general, we'll talk about these cards and how they're good. So Vader's Might, it only issues an order to Darth Vader. Darth Vader gains, as a free action, chooses another non-heavy unit at range 1, and place that unit on the battlefield within range 1 and height 1 of its current position. Then, if it is an enemy unit, roll 1 white defense die for each minion in that unit. The unit suffers 1 wound for each block or surge result. Almost it hit, even though it's defense die. So yeah, Vader gains a free action for this turn where he picks another unit. Doesn't matter where it is. It just has to be range 1. And then it can be like any height. It can be behind cover. There's no line of sight. It's just range 1. Okay, now I can move you to anywhere within range 1 of its position, not of Vader. So you can wangle these guys around quite a lot. Also note that it says place, not like move. So I don't know if like displacement works. It does still say height 1 of its original position, so you can't be like, ooh, you're gonna teeter on this little tiny spot or something. You're still gonna be able to move it. And then if it's an enemy unit, it rolls around. So, first of all, this applies to non-enemy units, so you can do some fun slingshot stuff. I've already heard some people talking about slingshotting Vader and Palp around the battlefield. Classic video gamey exploit style. Also, yes, you can just grab enemy. Like, you thought scatter was cool. Now, how about let's just grab a unit, throw them into the middle of the field, and be like, yo, you're gonna take damage now, and also now you're out of cover. You can use it to pull closer, all kinds of versatility. Honestly, almost too much to talk about. Now, despite the fact that this has an ATDP on the front, because it's inspired by a moment in Rebels where like they throw some shit on Vader, and Vader's just like, you thought you crushed me? No, I crush you. It is non-heavy. Apparently it was originally any unit, but apparently during playtesting, swinging tanks and stuff around the battlefield was a little too good. So I wonder if it can actually do like displacement and stuff. But still, there's a lot of units. Remember how we talked about how you want to keep your AT-RTs out of Vader's killy range? Well, now Vader has an excuse to get you in killy range. And you could still take damage. Because it's not... Well, it is similar to... Is that technically the clamber? I think that's clamber. Some of the climbing stuff confuses me about like which verb is which, but I think that's the clamber. So normally an AT-RT is a climbing vehicle. It's an expert climber, right? It's immune to clamber. But this isn't called a clamber, so you can still take clamber-esque damage as Vader just chucks you around the field. Super fun card, Vader's Might. Love the thematics here. And then his 2-pip is Fear and Dead Men. This is from a comic, which is super iconic, where Vader is surrounded by shitloads of rebel troopers after he gets shot down, and he doesn't give a fuck. So this also only activates Darth Vader, and it says, while Darth Vader uses Deflect, the attacker suffers 1 wound instead for each blank result instead of each surge result. While the enemy unit, when an enemy unit at range 1 to 2 in line of sight of Darth Vader activates, Vader gains 1 dodge token. So, this is kind of the answer for either version of Vader, because they both have Deflect. But this is kind of the answer to the old everybody dogpile on Vader problem, right? That was an issue a lot of people had with the original Commander Vader, was he's too slow, even with Relentless, and if he double moves, he often ends up parked out of cover, because it's not like he gets cover from suppression. He ends up parked out of cover, and it doesn't matter how many dodge tokens I've got from, like, Force Guidance or whatever. Not Guidance, Reflexes. Guidance is a different thing. That gives you Surge tokens, which also are great for Vader. And Force Guidance is in this pack. More on that later. But, now, if you do this 2-pip, sure, only Vader gets to activate. But, when he uses Deflect, the enemy suffers 1 wound for each blink. So, you still get your Surge to block effect on red defense dice. But on the off chance that you blank out, then you do damage to the enemy, which should make enemies feel a little concerned about shooting you, because the more damage they do to you, the more damage you're going to do back. And also, we talked about, the dodge token stuff. Reflexes is only a 1 time. And then you got to untap it and do the whole thing again. This is any enemy unit. It doesn't matter what their rank is or anything, so long as they're within line of sight in range 1 to 2 of Darth Vader, he gains a dodge token, which he can use to fuel his deflect. So, I think this is a good improvement for both versions of Vader. This basically is like, oh, is there going to be a huge crowd of people, possibly at close range, shooting at me? Yeah, I'm going to pop Fear and Dead Men and be like, okay, do you really want to shoot me? Do you want to take that chance? Because if I whiff, if my dice blank out, you're going to get hurt. I'm going to pay you back for every wound you deal me. But obviously, it does come with a very clear counterpoint. Oh, hey, that means you blanked out on your defense dice, which you really don't want to do. And it's also kind of unlikely, since you've got Surge to block. But still, it can be a good way to give Vader a decent chunk of dodge tokens. Look at your battlefield when you do it, but I think it solves some problems that Vader had. And then lastly, everybody should know what this one does already, because it was shown very plainly in the preview. But here's Darkness Descends, also explicitly taken from Rebels, though Vader does this sort of trick a lot. Like, think of it as Vader just dramatically drops into the scene in Rebels. Vader appears out of nowhere in Rogue One at the end of the hallway. Shit like that. So, Darkness Descends is his 3-pip. It only issues an order to Darth Vader. When Darth Vader is issued an order, he gains 2 Surge tokens. We talked about how cool that is. Surge tokens are great. And then this card may be revealed at the start of the deploy unit step. If it is, it must be selected during round 1. Darth Vader gains Infiltrate and Scout 1, and he must be deployed at the end of setup. So Vader always is deployed last. He gains Infiltrate and Scout 1, so he gets to appear anywhere on the board outside of range 3, and then immediately move 1 range band. This solves a problem a lot of people have with Vader. I think it's slightly better on Operative than Commander Vader, because Commander Vader is still pretty expensive, and I presume still a big center point of your army with, like, his, big suppression bubble and stuff like that, right? Like, you're still going to want him theoretically close, but you could use it, and you still use him as a beat stick. But basically, this solves the problem of, how do I get Vader to the action? Now Vader is just like, hey, I'm in the action. And it can completely derail your opponent, because he's got to deal with a Vader immediately. Like, that's, oh shit, Darth Vader in my zone, killing my dudes. With an Infiltrate and a Scout 1, he is within striking distance immediately of an enemy, and he still is Relentless. So, this is a great way to Vader ball and just huck that Hail Mary pass, pop Vader in the middle of the enemy territory, and be like, hey, I'm Darth Vader. I'm here. I'm gonna start killing your dudes right now. It's a great card, and a lot of people have talked about it, so let's not linger on it too much. So those are Vader's new command cards. They say they will work with both. I know a lot of people are like, but the portrait images. Don't worry, they'll rewrite the thing. They'll work it out. That's why I keep saying that that's their intention, obviously, because they keep saying they want to do that, even though at the moment the rules don't support it. let's talk about upgrades really briefly. All right, so the upgrades that come in this pack, you see Fear, because that was already spoiled before. I believe it was spoiled in the original announcement article, and it's been pretty clearly visible. So Fear is a force power. It's a 3-point upgrade, dark side only. And it gives you Demoralize 1, which is a new keyword, where at the after your rally step, enemy unit range 1 to 2 gains a suppression token. Up to 1, so I guess you can choose if... They'll have to be like an RG, because it says up to 1. So I think that means that if they already have 1, you can't do it, and it's only 1 enemy at range 1 to 2. So I'll want to see some full text for like specifics, but in general, it seems to be kind of the counter to Inspire, and basically be like, spooky. For 3 points, I think this is pretty good, especially on Operative Vader, who can get in lots of spooky places, but in general, your dark side users of the Force, pretty decent option. So in the spread, we can also see that Force Guidance is in there. That's 10 points, I believe, and you can give out some Surge tokens. I don't know, does it have to be the other friendly units? I'm trying to click Google Chrome to look at something, and it's freaking out a little bit. But yeah, let me double check if that's other units, or choose up to 2 friendly units at range 1 to 2. It doesn't say other, so yes, you can give yourself one of the Surge tokens. I think they still have to be different units, I don't know. It's a free action. Then it comes with 2 training upgrades. You've already seen one of them. It's Endurance. And then, judging by the fact that the article talks about Tenacity, which is you get extra dice when you have wounds for melee. Popular on Wookiees. A pretty decent upgrade overall. That is probably the other training upgrade. That works really well on Operative Vader. And training upgrades only work on Operative Vader, so yeah. Tenacity is a pretty good choice for him, or Hunter. You get more dice if the enemy is wounded, or if you're wounded. Like, obviously, with 2 less health, only 6, that's a couple of freak out, blank out rolls on some people shooting. Not likely, I know, but possible still. From death. Like, heck, technically if just a regular 6-man squad rolls all paint, and you don't roll anything, that could be it for you. I don't know if you want to count on the whole, whatchamacallit, that I'm gonna avoid that problem. But think about it, because that's extra red dice. Never bad. But other than that, yeah, there's not a lot else going on here upgrade-wise, to talk about. And that is everything about the Darth Vader Operative Expansion pack. So, time for outro. Let's talk about a little bit of other news. So, unfortunately, it appears like the Clone Wars core set is delayed. It's just going to miss its original Q3 release date by like 5 days, less than a week. It is a little unfortunate, but yeah. It's been confirmed that they are going to be pushed back to the 4th of October. Now, first of all, not a huge delay. And there's been some thinking that there's going to be some delays because the escape pod was pushed back also a little bit. Now, some of the other expansion packs were listed, like the standalone packs, like clones and stuff, were listed as now shipping when the core set was not, so I don't know if people will get like pre-orders, or some retailers will get stock in early, still on time, or if FFG is going to like hold the whole thing, or if that was just like an error. I don't know. Don't know how that works. But yeah, street date's going to be a little delayed. Not terrible news. It's a very short delay, and unfortunately, shipping is really complex. Like, don't be confused just because we're all spoiled by like Amazon Prime now. You can get your product in 24 hours or less. Shipping physical stuff can be very complex. I do know that FFG is supposedly diversifying some of their printing on materials to kind of avoid problems with the ongoing trade war with China, because there's a lot of concern with that. And some of those stuff was delayed, some of that stuff was put off, so hopefully all these things work out. So, speaking about the escape pod expansion, I've actually heard this comment from a couple of people, and I wanted to address it. Because while, obviously, everybody's entitled to their opinions, and opinions are subjective, some stuff I think can be a little bit factually wrong. So some people have said, does the escape pod expansion mean that FFG lied when they said you wouldn't have to buy another factions unit? And, no, they didn't. They did not. I mean, after I lay this stuff on you, if you still want to interpret it that way, I can't stop you. but I'm going to say that you're factually incorrect. So let's flash back. The internet has a terrible habit of keeping quotes alive long after they've been said, but completely ignoring any context or reasoning behind why people said them, right? And they will keep them alive, even if FFG said, oh, hey, so that's not 100% true anymore because when we said that, some stuff changed. People will still say, but you said, and they're like, no take backsies. So let's flash back. Okay? So when that comment came out, this was, I believe it was first said anyway, before the release of Legion, period. Right? So this was over a couple years ago now. And it was talking about people's concerns, because X-Wing also hadn't started rolling out their second edition yet. So this was a common concern. This was a problem with the first edition of X-Wing, and which X-Wing 2 was said they were moving towards a more Legion-like model to combat this complaint. But people had a real concern that they would have to buy units not in their faction to get all their upgrades. All their upgrades. That's very important. That's what this complaint was originally about, and that's what FFG's response was. This was a problem that was endemic to the first edition of X-Wing. There were a lot of must-have, super competitive upgrades that you needed oodles and oodles of copies of that were only available in, like, 1 or 2 expansions over the entire lifespan of the product. For instance, Twin Laser Turret was a really big one. That was originally only available in the K-Wing expansion. And Auto Thrusters was another big deal for the longest time. Despite being an Imperial mainstay for years for a classic ship, that was only available in the Star Viper pack for a long, long time. So much so that people call that expansion, especially because the Star Viper had to be fixed with another release anyway. But people call that the Auto Thrusters expansion pack, okay? So that's the kind of situation we're in as Legion is being announced and getting prepped to roll out, and people have concerns. Because the second part of this concern was that ships like the Star Viper, or like the K-Wing, were much more obscure Legends ships than big iconic ships like the TIE Interceptor, for instance. So there was a concern that, we're going to get stuck with some obscure Legends or cartoon crap that's going to have all the must-buys, and we're going to have to buy like 5 of these expansions to get our upgrades. Once again, to get our upgrades. And that has mostly been true. Legion has adopted a slightly different system. You never have to buy out of faction to get upgrades. Parallel releases will almost always have the same upgrades for both factions, and now for roughly, I think, all 4 factions. You might have to wait an extra month or 2, but you never have to buy. You never have to go, oh shoot, only Imperial Killy Troopers have the Killy Grenade upgrade, which I really need to win all the tournaments. That doesn't happen. You're like, honestly, I think Legion is sometimes too conservative with this. Like, you'll see a block of releases that were obviously all designed at roughly the same time, and it'll be like, a whole quarter of releases, it'll be 3 or 4 months, and it'll of nothing but, oh, hey, this unit's got a grenade upgrade. I bet that's frag grenades again. But that's the general release Legion has taken, okay? Which is a good thing. You get all the releases you need that aren't specific to a faction or a unit, like Rebels never have to... There's not going to be a dark side release upgrade unless it's something like Ezra comes out and Ezra has a keyword which is like, I can use dark side upgrades. In which case, expect the Ezra expansion pack to come with basically all the dark side upgrades you can't get because you've been buying Rebels the whole time. You know what I'm saying? So that is what FFG meant when they said that. They were addressing concerns that people had that they were going to be buying multiple copies of expensive, obscure expansions to fill out their upgrade list, which you've never had to do. Like I said, you might have had to wait a couple months, which can be a little frustrating, but in general, you've never had to, be like, oh shoot, now I have to buy this new thing. Now you might say, oh, I'm a thematic player or I'm a hobby player, I didn't really want to buy Shore Troopers or Pathfinders or whatever to get the upgrades, because I didn't really like those units. Well, that's how it is. You're collecting for a faction, you want to get new content, you can't not buy new content. That's how that works. So, let's talk about the Escape Pod expansion. Some people are like, oh, if I'm an Imperial or Separatist player, if I want this piece of terrain, I have to buy another faction's unit. FFG lied to me. No, they didn't. They were talking about upgrades. They didn't lie to you. We don't even know if they planned to release the terrain expansions at the time they said that. This was before Legion even came out. Now, while they did have a pretty decent schedule for everything, obviously, right? They had a pretty decent setup for the stuff. I'm actually trying to double check. What time was the down ATST? Are these just faction releases? Where's my neutral releases? So Q1 was all that stuff. I think it's in is it in supplies and accessories? Yeah, there it is. Okay. I was looking in the wrong zone. Down ATST. Yeah, that was announced in 2019. That was announced earlier at the beginning of this year and released in the next. So the core set was released a whole year before that came out. And that was the first, real terrain expansion that was turned around. So, yes, they probably started designing it by the time the core set had come out. But still, it wasn't in dev until after the game was already, mostly together and being released. So, in that pre-release hype, they probably weren't thinking about terrain expansions. At least, not any different than, say, Priority Supplies, which is a really, really neutral expansion. So, FFG has never said, oh, you might have to get some stuff that's not compatible with your faction if you want to buy terrain. I don't even know if they were, like we said, were planning on releasing terrain like they are releasing terrain now. And you also were already boned. You already had that problem. If you're a Clone Wars or Separatist, if you're a Clone Wars player, period, Republic or Separatist, I should say, you don't want to buy it down to ATST. Well, you wouldn't want to anyway because it's not thematically appropriate, but you can't use the scenario cards with it. At least not officially. But you can't use those in tournaments anyway. So there's no need to concern about your competitive buying habits. You don't have to sink all that money into it, and God knows, I don't think a lot of people sunk into it. Similarly, you probably don't want to buy an Imperial Bunker. But if you want the terrain, you gotta suck it up, and you gotta pay all that extra cash for cards you can't use. The other thing well, there's a couple different things to think about with the Escape Pod, but the first thing, this is actually FFG being true to their promise. There are upgrades in the Escape Pod pack, like the integrated combat antenna, etc. And while, yes, you can say that while the Republic and Rebels only have a droid trooper unit because of this expansion pack, they still have a droid trooper unit, which means they can still use generic upgrades that target droid troopers like integrated combat antenna. So FFG is making it so to stock your R2-D2 with upgrades, you don't have to buy Separatist boxes. You just buy the Escape Pod box. That's right, I flipped it on you. This is a FFG reverse line. This is them telling the truth. Gotcha. Boom. Mic dropped. Only not really, because I got a couple other points. The second is you can't play Legion by yourself. Or if you can play Legion by yourself, hey, that means you own 2 armies. Probably. I guess theoretically, you could have such a massive backlog of 1 army you can play solo games versus yourself, which are just mirror matches. But yes, theoretically, you play with 2 people, and while we don't know the specifics of the setup and objective cards, we've only seen one of the condition cards, the down ATST only works between 2 specific factions. So it's entirely possible that there'll be a Republic versus Separatists and a Rebels versus Empire setup or objective card. We don't know. We can't see the whole contents of the pack yet, and won't for a while because it's been delayed, so it'll probably delay the preview articles. So we don't necessarily know what the setup is, but the implication might be that you still need another player of one of these factions anyway. So if you either have multiple armies set up so you could, loan a friend half your kit, which I know is a common thing. You have to split it. But it's the same as core sets, right? Nobody complained about FFG lying to them about buying at a faction when you've got to buy a core set that's got 2 factions in it. You just sell the other half or trade it to a friend or keep it so you've got another army to loan to a friend. It's the same thing. If you're a Separatist or Empire player and you really, really need that probably a little bit expensive hunk of plastic that is the terrain piece, just sell the standalone expansion because there are going to be competitive Republic and Rebel players who are going to be like, I don't want this stinking over expensive, because it's 2 or 3 times the cost of an operative or commander kit. Even if you extended it because it's got 2 minis in it that R2-D2 and 3PO would be, I think it's 3 or 4 times, would be a little bit extra cost, but it's got 2 factions in it, so it kind of balances out, but still. Right, it's there are going to be people who want to play R2-D2 or C-3PO who are I don't care about these scenario play battlefield cards or this piece of terrain. I'm just gonna play Legion with R2-D2 because he's the new hotness with secret mission and victory points and blah blah blah. So you'll be able to find a pretty good secondary market. And here's the other thing. Once again, we don't know the full content of the release. It's entirely possible, knowing FFG, that, remember, secret mission can't work in scenario cards. So it's entirely possible that there's a version on one of those scenario cards with setup or something that are intended that maybe R2 and C-3PO are mobile objective. Like, they perform speed 1 moves every so many things, and your goal is to, like, capture or escort them. We don't know the details. So it's entirely possible that there's still a use for them if you buy the pack and you're a Separatist or Imperial player because you want to use the scenario cards. If you really want just the terrain, you're just as shit out of luck as people who just want the operative upgrades, or the operative units. Alright? I do think that, yeah, okay, you can say it's a little shenanigansy, right? Because it is, while it's a lower price point than a lot of their other terrain stuff, it is still a higher price point than a standalone operative pack, but, 2 factions, upgrades, etc. I think this is FFG trying to make a product that people will buy. I don't know how well the down ATST pack did. Most people said they weren't going to buy it because it was expensive and very limited. Especially, let's see, when was the new course set announced? It was announced in March, so by the time the down ATST released, we knew that the Clone Wars core set was coming. So people would know that, oh shit, it's going to be incompatible, or at least the Battlefield cards are, we're going to be incompatible with 2 factions. Now, I've rambled on long about it enough, I've unpacked this enough, but I felt like this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do another Legion video, is I really wanted to unpack this. So, like I said, you can still feel betrayed or lied to, whatever, by FFG. I don't really get the motivation to, but sometimes people like to have righteous anger. You're entitled to your opinion. If the construction of the escape pod pack makes you uncomfortable, or it annoys you, or it makes you angry, hey, those are your feelings. I can't stop you. But factually, I believe that the statement that FFG lied is not correct, for the reasons I have discussed. So maybe don't at me with that opinion? Alright. So we're going to go ahead and wind down now. This video is already way longer than it needed to be. Got a little rambly at the end, but there was a lot of discussion there. I've been thinking about this for like a week, since the escape pod announcement came out. So I'll go ahead and wind down, and just let you guys know, hey, if you like this video, give it a like. If you have any comments, except for the comments where I explicitly told you not to at me, I will get rid of those. Leave them in the comment section down below. We're also considering our Discord that links in the description. And if you're new here, please subscribe to the channel so you can always get our latest videos. Do pretty regular Legion videos, do some other stuff. It's fun, check us out. And of course, even if you're already subscribed, consider that bell for notifications so you always know when we post a new video. And like it says at the front of the show, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early, lots of other stuff. Really helps us out. Keeps this thing going. Alright, that's everything. So, I'm not really sure what the next preview in the can should be. I'd have to look at stuff. It might be more detail on the specialist packs. I'd have to figure some stuff out. Anyway, trust me, I'll come at you whenever there's some Legion news. And who knows? I think technically next in the slot is the bunker, so maybe we'll get to see what kind of stuff is in there. And we'll see if I'm proved right about whether or not that's also only limited to stuff. It probably is, because we know that FFG got a little bit of a hint dropped from Lucasfilm that was like, hey, can you guys do more original trilogy stuff? We'd be okay to approve that. Anyway, that's the preview. That's my thoughts on some stuff. That's the news. I will see you in the next video. All I see around me are fear and dead men.